Hi everyone, welcome back to Journeying with Janay. I am super excited because as you can see I have another special guest this week. If you watched last week, you know that we're in the Layers of Womanhood series. This is episode 2. If you have not watched episode 1, which is entitled The Struggles of Walking into Womanhood, I suggest you do so now. So stop this video, don't even watch the rest, go watch the first episode because this series is a series, so it's meant to be like a building block. So last week kind of started our foundation of walking into womanhood, and this week for episode 2 we are discussing being women having purpose outside of marriage and motherhood, and that we're whole beings all by ourselves. So this episode is entitled The Prize and Not the Purpose. The reason for the title of the episode and the episode is because of this beautiful young lady sitting next to me. This is my sister. we grew up together.
Did.
Blood couldn't make us any closer. So everybody welcome Jennifer to the episode. Jennifer is a National Guard recruiter for the area. She serves in the National Guard. So let's snap, claps, everything else, because she's way braver than I can ever be. She serves our country. So Jen, we really appreciate, 1, you being here today, and 2, you serving our country, because girl, I admire you.
Thank you.
So as I said, this episode was kind of almost her idea. We had a conversation about a year and a half ago. She came over to the house.
Dang, that was a year and a half ago?
Yeah, it was. So I hadn't started journeying with Janay yet. I just had ideas written down of things I knew I wanted to talk about. Journeying with Janay was a totally different name at that time. And her and I were having a conversation and catching up, talking about what we've been up to, the importance of therapy, the difference it had made in our lives. And then we kind of started to talk about relationship stuff, and I was newly single, and we were saying how we kind of wasn't rushing it or looking for it. And Jennifer was like, yeah, I just want to get myself together, girl. And she said she dropped the gem that she didn't know she dropped, which made me think. And it turned into journals, and now has turned into the second episode of this series. She told me, she said, because after all, they are the prize and not the purpose. And I said, oh, okay. So that whole night I thought about that. I wrote a journal about it. I was in the shower and I'm like, the prize and not the purpose. That's interesting. So it caused me to actually go back into my life and do some self-work, because as you all know, I have fibromyalgia, and after my diagnosis I felt that I lost my purpose and I will only be good enough to be a wife and a mother because I'm sick now. And for women who that's their desire and that's their goal, I applaud you. There's nothing wrong with it. But for some of us, we sometimes feel we have no purpose outside of that. And this episode is to remind you that you do. You are a whole person, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you have kids, and whether it's your choice not to. So let's kind of get into this episode. You ready, Jen?
I was ready, girl.
So to lay a little foundation, we all know we live in the United States of America, and it is a patriarchal society. Women has always had to fight for everything, starting back in the mid 19th century when they started the women's suffrage movement, fast forwarding to 1920, which is only 100 years ago. This year we got the right to vote. That's crazy to me.
Wow, 100 years.
100 years this year. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was August 26, 1920, the 19th Amendment was passed, and we got the right to vote. So that's not very long ago when you think about it. Only that little short period of time. And then when you kind of fast forward a little bit, the ERA, I think, was the first draft of it. And for those who don't know, the ERA is the Equal Rights Amendment, was drawn up in the mid 1920s. And then when you fast forward to the 1970s, they really started to fight for it in Congress. And if anybody wants to know more about the ERA in that time in the 70s, watch Mrs. America. It's on Hulu. It's amazing. That's how I learned about it and was kind of able to integrate it into this episode. So we fought for that, and we're still fighting for equal rights today, to be paid the same wage as a man, to just like be able to have children and that not be I guess you could kind of say a little knock to our careers, so to speak, because
not held against us in our careers.
Thank you, girl. Because some women, they're afraid to, once they do have children, if they won't be able to move up in their careers because they have to be a mom. So that's kind of the foundation of our history as women in the United States of America. So I know in those times, and like in the time of my grandparents, a woman, their purpose was basically to get married, be a wife, and then be a mother, and then be a caretaker. They really didn't work, and they took care of home. And so once women became educated and did start to have careers and everything, we started fighting for those equal rights. And so that's kind of like the foundation of today's episode. So Jen and I were talking then, but going back to the conversation, and we also spoke about, as I said, our grandmothers and our family of origin. And I was just telling Jen before we started, I was like, we don't realize, but our family origin kind of shapes the way we look at everything. So for me, with my family origin, my parents have been married for almost 40 years now. My grandparents on both sides, at the time of their deaths, they were married. One was married 65, I think, years, and the other 50 years. So I always saw long, strong, healthy relationships. Yeah.
Like alone.
Yes. Girl, like I used to tease my grandmother. I was like, Mama, you've been waking up and looking at the same person for 63 years. Girl, you ain't tired yet? And she would just smile and say, no, I'm not tired yet. Mm-hmm. And I always have aspired to that type of love. And it's okay to. But for me, for a while, and especially after being sick, I felt that that was all that I had or would have, and wouldn't have a purpose or a career or anything else. And so my family of origin always pushed me, because it like kind of defined the way I looked at things. I always like, okay, marriage, mm-hmm. but really didn't think about career too much or anything like that. But for Jen, hers is a little different, so I'll let her tell you.
Totally different, right? So Janay grew up in an environment where everybody was married, right? But me, I came from a single mom, and my grandmother was a single mom. And so, well, my grandmother on my dad's side. So the women that I see in my life,
right,
being single women, it was nothing new to me. So for me, when I think about building a career or having a family, like career is always first in my mind.
Right.
It wasn't husband. It wasn't children. It was, I have to be independent and take care of myself. Right. As like my own woman. And that was like most important to me. So I kind of like growing up, like having a man that wasn't like, I mean, of course, like I want a man, you know that.
Who doesn't?
But you know, it wasn't like at the forefront of my mind, something
right.
that I had to accomplish to make me feel like I was complete.
Exactly.
So,
and like I said, it was the opposite for me. It was like career was second, but I always seen like the marriage and starting a family first, until like I kind of grew older, of course, and I was like, well, wait, I can do these things, or I can have that career I want. So career started to be pushed a little bit more to the forefront. And like she said, of course, I aspire to the marriage and to children and all of those things. But for me, it was like, okay, now I know I'm a little bit more career driven. And when I thought about this episode, and Jen and I was talking, I was like, we definitely have to bring that up, because I feel who's watching this, someone's going to have my family origin and some people are going to have hers. And it's going to show that you can have either one, but you can still be a whole person. You can still be career driven. You can still have a family. Or like I spoke about earlier, if you only want to focus on career, only focus on career. So that brings us into our next point of the alpha female. And before we started, I was like, because I think both of us are alpha females, Jen. And she was like, but I've never heard that before. Am I?
No one's ever said that to like my face. Like, you know, like, you're definitely an alpha female. It's more like, you shouldn't date sensitive men. That's right. That's really what people tell me. Like, you know, like, because you a lot to handle sometimes. And I'm like, but I can be sensitive. I can.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not one-dimensional. We talked about that. Again, go back and watch last week. We talked about not being one-dimensional beings as women, but as alpha females. And I know that I'm definitely one too. I
can definitely say that about her, though. She's definitely...
I have the tendency to
That's the one.
to be slightly aggressive, more aggressive than I guess society would feel a woman should be. And especially now, I'm extremely career driven. Like, I'm in school, I have a year left, I'm trying to start a business, and now I'm trying to brand myself with Journey and with Janay. So I definitely feel that, like, that alpha female, I think about it all the time. Like, I gotta have that leadership. I'm an entrepreneur, so I sometimes have to have a little bit of that edge because I need people to take me seriously, especially in the business world. And especially in the business world, you have a lot of men right now. Like, it's this percentage of women that are starting businesses and becoming entrepreneurs or on the rise, and especially us Black women. So we have our Black girl magic right there with starting businesses and brands and things of that nature. But I feel that sometimes it can be said, and some women look at the alpha female, it's like an insult, or sometimes it can be like when people tell it to us, they're saying, "Oh, like it's
that.
not a good thing."
I can see that, definitely.
Right.
Only because, like, as a Black woman, if you're outspoken or if you speak your opinion or you just say what's on your mind, some people can see you as aggressive in a bad way, right? So they see you as the angry Black woman or the Black woman with the attitude or something like that. Not just for you, just being your own person, your own individual. So I can see how people kind of take it out of context and they kind of think, "Oh, that's kind of negative. Like, I'm an alpha female. Like, I don't want that." Like, it doesn't mean that you're giving off all this masculine energy. It just means that your feminine energy is so strong and so driven that you have a point, like you have a purpose, and you know what you want, and you go out there and you do your best to go out and get it, whether that's your career, whether that's school, whether that's like any goals that you have. Like, you try and you put your best foot forward and you try to be like your best self, so sometimes it comes off as aggressive, but it's not meant with like harm or anything like that.
Yes, and that's kind of always been me. I've always had goals. I've always known what I wanted to do. We just talked about organization. I've always been...
Dude, Janay is so organized, y'all. Oh my God. Like, I wish I was as organized as my sister.
Girl, I help you out. Like I told you, sometimes it's a detriment sometimes because I'm a little too organized, but I can help you out. But yeah, so yeah, I've always been that goal person. Like, whatever the goal was, whether it was career, whether it was school, whether it was marriage or family, like whatever it was, I'm gonna go hard at it. I'm gonna give 110%. So I would be labeled, like you said, sometimes as aggressive or the alpha female, but I'm like, at first I would think it was an insult because the way that I've heard it, it could be. But then once you kind of come into your own of womanhood or walking into your womanhood, you do see that, okay, I'm going to be this boss female and I'm going to have my businesses or whatever that I want to have, whatever my goals are, I'm going to go hard for it.
Yeah.
So ladies out there, if you ever heard that, take it as a compliment and keep going for your goals. Definitely go for your goals. So I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I spoke about how I felt that I lost my purpose after being diagnosed and having to work to find it again. So Jen, have you ever felt at a time in your life that you like didn't have a purpose or lost your purpose or maybe couldn't find your purpose?
Definitely. It's so crazy because today I was on my way home from Lafayette because I drive a lot as a recruiter. Like, we drive a lot over the state. But I was driving home from Lafayette and I was like, because I've been more on this whole thing about disciplining myself, right? Because I'm not perfect. People think that, oh, you're in the military, you can do anything. I mean, I can do almost anything. But, like, it's hard. Like, it's hard. And you really have to be disciplined. But how do you build discipline, right? So I was watching this podcast, and I can't remember I think it's Prince Don, I can't remember, right? Anyway, so...
Girl,
it was talking about finding your purpose, and I was going through, like, there's, like, maybe 75 episodes, and I'm like, oh, I saw the one with finding your purpose. Crazy, huh?
Right.
So I'm like, ooh, let me tap on that one. I'll be having problems with my purpose, And it just talked about how... which is so crazy how we're in this moment right now. Because it talked about how people think your purpose is you going out and doing something. Like, that being your purpose. Like, you doing this is your purpose. Instead of thinking about who you are is your purpose.
Oh, that's good.
right? I was like, ooh, okay. So like who you are as an individual, your characteristics, your talents, your gifts, that is a part of your purpose in the world. What experiences did you bring to people? What situations you handle and stuff like that through who you are as a person, and what other people gain from that as well as what you gain from it, that is a part of your purpose. So I was like, I like that. Because as someone, like, I feel like I'll probably spend the rest of my life figuring out my purpose, right? Because even in that podcast, they talked about how your purpose is sometimes ever changing. It's never really the same, right? Because some people are like, oh, my purpose is to make music, right? Or my purpose is to, like play basketball. Or my purpose, whatever, right? But for some of us, or I say the majority of us, it's our purpose is ever changing. Like it's never just the exact same thing,
right? And I think too, as we evolve as people, it sometimes causes our purpose to evolve a little bit, because I know for me, like once I found decorating and event planning, because I'm such an organizer, I'm like, I think I found my purpose and I can do this for the rest of my life, which I still can, because doing that stuff, it doesn't feel like work to me. It's like I'm just doing something that I love. I just happen to get paid for it. And it wasn't until maybe a year and a half ago when I started going to therapy, started writing, then I'm like, oh, wait, I think I have more to do or more to say. So it kind of talks about like your purpose ever changing. And that's how I got here to sitting in front of a camera speaking with you guys. And like we always say, we turn pain into purpose, because going back to, I can't remember who said it. I don't want to misquote, but it's somebody, it's not my words, but I can't remember right now what it was. But they were like, look in the most painful parts of your life, because normally your purpose, your true purpose lies within there.
Yes.
And so I'm going to take this moment to say, ladies who's watching this, some of those painful parts of your life, and I'm speaking directly from the heart as well as experience, your purpose is going to lie within that, because pain and loss teaches you lessons that the good times can never teach you and the wins can never teach you. And it's in those painful moments and those losses that we learn those lessons, we build up that strength. But we have to remember, it's not for us to just go through it and keep it to ourselves. We have to help someone else. And it was in that pain that I started to find my purpose. So my purpose was ever changing. And even from young, I always knew that my purpose was to help people, but I didn't know how to help people.
Exactly.
Like in which capacity it would be. And so when I started event planning and decorating, I'm like, oh, I'm helping people through some of the biggest days of their lives, whether it be weddings or, parties, whatever, celebrations. And then as I dug deeper, so to speak, I started to see, wait, but now I see, that is helping and I can still do that. But when you celebrate, people are always there. But it's in those moments of pain and loss that sometimes you can feel so alone, and you can feel that you're by yourself and nobody has ever been through it. But until we start to speak what we've been through, we can't help people. And that's how I knew, okay, that's how I found my purpose, through doing the work to get through some of the most painful moments.
Gotcha.
Yes.
See, I didn't tell Janay this, right? But I'm just coming off a 3-day fast, a 3-day water fast. So,
oh girl, God bless
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I only drink water. I didn't have any fruit, I didn't have any food, I didn't have anything, just water. So I drink as close to a gallon as I could get, so about a gallon of water a day for 3 days. And today was the first day that I've eaten. So today's Monday, right? So I ate some fruit this morning, and then I had like a salad whenever I got home. But the point I'm trying to make is that how the one thing that I learned from my fast was to be present in the moment, right? To find a way to slow down and enjoy what's going on right now. Right? So it's so crazy because everything's coming around full circle. So that's why I'm like, it's coming around full circle, right?
Right.
So I watched, I didn't watch, but I listened to a YouTube video that a friend sent me because I had to pass this PT test, right? I had to pass this PT test until I was waking up at like 5 o'clock every morning for about 2 weeks, like working out, making sure that I could pass because it was like a big deal. So, he sent me like motivational, you know, stuff off YouTube, and I never watched it. I don't know why I never watched it. Like I just never got to it, you know.
Right.
So then I finally was like, oh, you know what? Because being more present and you just appreciating what's going on, like right in front of you, like I mean, really just putting your phone down and just being present as to what's going on. Right. It's crazy the way that God will speak to you. Like I mean, we'll just say something, you're like, oh, let me do that. Or, you know, like you're more motivated, you're more focused. It's just, it all comes together. So I was listening to this this video on my way to Lafayette this morning, and he talked about how what was it? Girl, I got lost for a second.
Oh, it's okay.
I was like, what? But no, he was talking about you know, he wasn't talented. He wasn't gifted,
right?
But he had determination. Like he had this determination to be great. He didn't want to be average. He didn't want to be mediocre. So I think that goes back to what you were saying about, you know, your pain and your purpose, right? So he felt like if anything it was that would happen in his life, his purpose was to be better than average. So I'm kind of trying to figure out how I got here. How did I get here?
I was saying, like, you normally find your purpose where your most painful parts of your life are.
Oh, yes. There it goes, guys. Y'all know how I be losing, girl.
Girl, we all have those moments.
Oh, my God. I'm going to be like, cut that out, Janay. Just cut that part out and then, like, start it back up right here.
Part out.
She should definitely cut it out. But anyway. But, yes. So, he was telling me, he was just saying how, through the pain, because he ran 100 miles. He ran 100 miles. In 24 hours, he ran straight for 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
So he felt like in the moments of pain is whenever you do learn the most. Like he gained so much knowledge about himself, because we have this fear, right? Like we have this fear, like we want to do certain things, and we have this fear that's holding us back. It's nobody else. It's just our own fear. Right. So he took that fear that he had and he ran and he got in shape and he ran those 100 miles and did these marathons, and he talked about how, because the video full circle, right, and how that pain is what drove him to his destination, is what he's like, you have to suffer, basically, like you have to suffer. And people are afraid to suffer. They don't want to go through pain. They don't want to.
You about to make me cry right now, because you talk about full circle moments, and I'm gonna tell y'all why. I'm gonna let her finish.
But seriously, like you have to go through a moment of suffering so that you can elevate and get to that next level you want to get to. You want to do this, you want to do that, but you don't have the motivation, you don't have the discipline. But it's because people are afraid to go through suffering. And I can attest to that. Like, I don't want to be in pain. I don't want my body hurting all day. Like, but I want to have this nice rock hard abs and this nice beautiful body. But it's like, I don't want to work hard for that. I don't want to go through that. But you have to. It's like certain people giving up certain things for a certain amount of time. And you always see that one phrase, like 6 months of hard work. Isn't like 6 months of hard work and dedication will set you 5 years in advance from everybody around you. Just that. We came full circle. We got there.
Yeah.
Thank you for being patient.
Yeah, but the reason why I said it's meant, like, she told me cut it out, but I probably won't, because everything is meant to be, and I'm glad that you took the time to think about it. And like she said, full circle. I watched a sermon that this past, like, flare-up that I had that reminded me of what you said. Everybody who watched me by now should know that we stan Sarah Jakes Roberts on this channel, okay? That's like my favorite, and I watch her all the time. Like once a week I literally watch a sermon, and she talked about from weeping to walking was the sermon. And she talked about passion, and she said how we think passion is a sexy word, and you know, because you're passionate, it's an emotional thing. She said, but when she looked it up, that when you look up the root word of passion in Latin, it means to suffer. And she said our problem is we don't want to suffer. But she said most of the time you're going to find your purpose with something you're passionate about. But in order to be passionate about something, you have to be willing to suffer through it to get to your purpose.
Yes.
And it made my whole life, especially the last 7.5 years of my life, make sense. Which is why when you said about him suffering, I'm like, this really is a full circle moment, because I watched that maybe like 2-3 weeks ago and talked about suffering to get to your purpose. So I want to take this moment to tell any ladies out there that's watching us, if you haven't, or you feel you haven't found your purpose yet, look at the areas in your life that you have to suffer in. Like I said, find that painful thing, because most of the time that's where your purpose lies. But also be willing to suffer for your purpose, because to fulfill your purpose will not be easy, especially when you have adversity coming up against you. You have life, things that happen in life that happen to any of us. It's harder. It's so hard sometimes to find our purpose. But when we find it, sometimes it's even harder to operate in it, because we're constantly feeling like we're attacked or whatever, but we're actually just suffering for our purpose. And our suffering sometimes also validates our purpose.
Definitely.
Because I couldn't sit here and tell you to push past pain or to turn pain into purpose if I'm not doing it.
Truly, truly.
So, yeah. So, we've talked about family origin, talked about the alpha female, and we've talked about like how we maybe have lost our purpose and had to find it or had to dig deeper. So in this moment, what I would like to discuss is for the women out there who want to have a family or want to attain that in children and relationship, just know that that will come. I find now from experience that it's so much better to work on you, to find your purpose, to make you the best you that you can be. And then it will feel like she said, a prize has come, because I've worked on myself and I know that I'm a gift. Yes. And hopefully the person that's meant for you, you find them and you get that gift. So when you come together and you create this beautiful life, it's like you have a prize. Yes. Because of your hard work on yourself. And like I said before, it goes back to the episode being entitled The Prize and Not the Purpose. But right now, I really want to take a moment to speak to my ladies who want, two sets of ladies. One, if you feel like you've lost your purpose, know that it's not too late to find it or to discover it or to pick yourself back up again.
Definitely.
Please, please, please never feel that it's too late. It's never too late. The only day that it is too late is when they're saying ashes to ashes and dust to dust. You always have time to find your purpose, to dig deeper, to maybe change what you old ways of thinking in order to get to the position and the place that you need to be to find your purpose and to fill it out and to fulfill it and to carry it out. The next thing I want to talk about and talk to are my ladies who may say, yeah, Janay, I'm more of a Jennifer. I'm career driven, but in the way that I'm not like Jennifer, I may not be looking for marriage or I may not want children. It is okay. Do not allow society or people to make you feel girl. Do not let them make you feel like you're less of a woman because you don't desire the things that they think women should desire. You are whole and complete all by yourself. You don't have to wait for a man or for a woman or for a partner, whichever you choose, to come along to validate you or to make you complete. You should be that all on your own. And that was one of the most profound things that Jennifer said in that conversation, which I still don't know if you remember. You were saying about becoming a whole person on your own and being complete on your own. And that you come together. If two complete people come together, then you make a picture. But it's like when you have one person who's not complete and looking for your fulfillment in another person, especially out of a relationship, you're always gonna be broken or not fulfilled.
Like it reminds me of one of my sergeants said, right? She said, like something like this, like, yes, I want you, but damned if I need you, you know? And I'm a true advocate for self-love, getting to know yourself. What do you like to do? Because I think it's so important to be an individual in your relationship, you know, like that person doesn't necessarily complete you. They're like the icing on top to life, you know?
Right.
So it's like, yes, I may want to get married. I may want to have kids, right? But understanding that it doesn't just come overnight. You know, I feel like, especially with our generation, she's like 2 years about 2 or 3 years younger than me.
I'm 24.
I just turned 27, y'all.
So yeah, 3.
So yeah, but I feel like our generation, we kind of have like, we don't really know how to date, low key. Like, we don't really know how to date, right? How to take the steps to get to marriage. And I know at one point in my life, I was like, husband, marriage, right? And it's like, girl, you want to be a wife, but you don't even know how to be a girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even know how to date.
Okay, drop gems
then. You know
right.
what I'm saying? And sometimes it's just so awesome when you can just focus on yourself. Whatever that is, like going to school, having a career, focus on you, better yourself. And, you know, while you're not focused on having a man and you're not focused on having that husband, you still pray over him, right? So you still pray over his situation. You still pray over his heart. You still pray over his intentions. Like, you want what's best for him, even though you don't know who he is yet, right? But you're still praying over him in hopes that one day that you'll come across him, that it'll all make sense, it'll come together. But it's not your purpose in life. Like, your purpose in life is not to, well, for me, definitely for me, it's not to have a man and get married. And because some people really think like your life as a woman is to be laid up underneath a man. And I even watch certain couples, like I have this uncle who's not really my uncle, but he's like my uncle, right? And him and his wife live in 2 different homes. So like, but they kind of got married maybe like 8 years ago, but they had been together for like, I don't know, maybe like another 10 before that. So with them, they have their own, they grew up, they both had marriages before, right? But then now they're married together. They already have their kids. They already have their grandkids. Like, they already have their separate lives, but they still keep their separate homes. And I told myself whenever I was younger, I was like, you know, even in their relationship, because I was in a relationship at the time, and I was like, you know what? I want to have my own house, you know? Like, I want to have my own home. Not to live away from you and not to be away from you, but to say that I have something that's mine. Yes. It's mine. It's not for us. It's for me. I did that. That's for me, right? And to feel accomplished for doing something without thinking that you needed to have your man by your side. Because at the end of the day, you are my prize. Like, we're all prizes. You're a prize. You're a prize. You're a prize.
And our men out there, y'all prizes as well.
Exactly. Like, the men out there.
I always tell y'all, even though this is called the layers of womanhood, this is not bashing men. We uplift our kings. We love our kings.
We do.
This is just to encourage women and to remind them in a society that most of the time tells them differently, that they still have purpose outside of just being somebody's wife or somebody's mother.
So we're all prizes, men and women. We're both prizes. Right. It's just, you're not my purpose. You are a gift from God through living this life on this earthly world. Right. And that's what it is for me. And I think that's the same thing for Janay.
Yeah, it took me some time to get there, but that's definitely what it is for me. And something you said, and I didn't want to interrupt you, that I said I wanted to come back to. I know you said icing on the cake. It's gonna come back, but just really knowing, like you said, that you are not my purpose. I have so much more purpose outside of you. Got it. When she said, with her sergeant said, I want you, but I be damned if I need you. I don't say it in that terms, but I always tell people that I want a man, I don't need a man. And sometimes people, and even some men, take that to take offense to it. And when I'm saying it, I'm not saying it to be offensive, because you should want me. You should want me to want you in my life. Yeah, that was a mouthful, but you should want to, I should want you to be here. I should need you to be here. And I feel, especially in generations past, because women didn't work, they didn't really have careers, so the men were the breadwinners. A lot of times they stayed in toxic relationships because they needed them, because they couldn't. If they would have left, how am I going to support myself? If they would have left, how am I? Because when rest in peace to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she just died, I saw a meme that showed everything that she did while she was in office to help women. And one of those things was making sure that a woman can have a bank account without a male signature, making sure a woman can buy a house without having a male signature. And I didn't know those things until she passed away. But I'm so thankful.
Now.
Right. But I'm so thankful for those because it's like, I want, like you said, I don't want to need you. I want to want you in my life, because so many people stay in relationships, like I said prior, out of need because they don't know how they're going to
totally agree with that. Like,
how they're going to make
certain women, if you had enough money to move out from this man to live on your own as an independent person, would you even still be with this person?
Yes.
Would you?
And that's for me. I always grew up, a phrase that my dad would always tell me is, and this is coming from a man, you want a person in your life, a partner that you can depend on, that y'all can depend on each other, but you don't want to be dependent on them to the point that if you take them away, you have nothing. And that always stuck with me and pushed my independence, and probably is how I have maybe the alpha female mentality, because I want to make sure that with or without you, I can support myself. With or
not
without
even support
you,
yourself,
I'm good,
but happy.
And that's why I was about to go. With or without you, I'm going to be happy. And it took me a while to get there, to enjoy the season of my life, whether it's me single, me in a relationship, or me married, to know that I'm enough. I can be happy by myself. Do I desire those things and do I want them? Yes. But when it's time for them to come, they're going to come. So to my girls out there, especially younger girls, like she said, women who are walking into their womanhood in our age, we have to remember that we have so much more to offer and to give to this earth before we leave here, other than just being married and having children. And like I was saying, to those women who don't, you're still complete. If that's not your one and your desire, that is totally fine.
Girl,
you're still
live
your life. You're still a complete woman. And one more thing that you said about having those ownership things on your own. It brings me back to a conversation that I always have with my parents, that I literally just had probably till end of last week. Is I told y'all, like, I'm trying to brand and I'm starting a business with event planning, and it's so important to me that my last name is the last name I'm known by, that I'm known as Janay Edmonds and not whatever it is when I'm married. Not that I'm not going to change my last name. I always say, I think I want to hyphenate, but of course I won't know till I'm in that moment. But for me, it's important to be branded as Janay Edmonds. Journeying with Janay is Janay Edmonds. Elegantly J is Janay Edmonds, because it's the name that has been passed down. It's the name that's my father's and my grandfather's, and it's so important to me to be known, because I work so hard to become Janay Edmonds. I work so hard to get to love Janay Edmonds and get to know Janay Edmonds. So when y'all get to know her, I want y'all to know her as Janay Edmonds. And we were just, like I said, just talking about that. And another reason why I think it's so important for me, if y'all watch last week's episode, I keep telling y'all this because a lot of things that I'm pulling from comes from there. Last week when I was talking, we talked about like pressure that we put on ourselves. And for me, I talked about pressure with career and like measuring up. And I would always choose careers that I thought would measure up. So I would say like doctor. So when I was younger, I would say I wanted to be a GYN. And my grandfather, before he passed, he would always say, I know you always say you want to be a doctor, and we don't have a doctor in the family. So, and because he's from that generation, my grandfather was born, I think, in 1933. So he would always say, I know you would have to check with your husband, but could you be Dr. Edmonds so our name could be that? And I would always laugh when I think about it, because I'm like, well, Paul, that's kind of a decision for me. But I
so cute.
I always said, I was like, no, I'm not going to be a doctor because that's not my purpose. But whatever my purpose is, I want to be known with that name, with Janay Edmonds, because that is a form of my independence.
Yeah, and your identification.
My identification, and as well as I always think about my grandfather. So Papa, it might not be, it's not going to be a doctor, but they will know that I'm Janay Edmonds. They will know my name, and it will be the last name that I have because of him. So, we kind of come into the end of this episode. So at the end of the episode, we touched on never losing women who didn't want marriage or children, that you're complete. But now I want to speak to my women who have gotten to the point that they're either in a long-term relationship, committed relationship, or marriage, and maybe a mother at this point too. Never lose who you are. I find as women, we lose ourselves trying to be everything for everybody else. We give away almost some of our power trying to be everything for everybody else and not being enough for ourselves. So women that are married, that are in committed relationships, that are moms, because you may have had to put some of those hopes and dreams and goals to the side because you had to do things, today is your wake-up call to pick those back up. Whether they're in a journal, whether they're in your mind, revisit them. If they're not written down, write them down. Because trust me, the power of manifestation, we spoke about it last week and I talk about it all the time, is so real.
So real.
Writing those goals down, putting it in the atmosphere, speaking them to God through prayer, it is so important to do so. So I encourage you, pick those goals and those dreams that you had, pick them back up and start to work on them. No, it may not be easy because I know you have work, I know you have your husband, I know you have your children, and it is a lot. I am not married and don't have kids yet, and it's a lot to do the things that I'm trying to do, so I can only imagine with those added responsibilities. But today is your wake-up call to pick those back up. You have so much purpose lying within you that does not need to stay dormant. Today is your day to pick it up and to take some of that power back. Whether it's making some sacrifices, you might have to sacrifice some time that you would do other things with. You might have to rearrange things. You may have to have conversations with your partners like, hey, I might need you to help me out here so I can get back to some of the things that I've always wanted to do. I did an encouragement for the journey that said a life lived on purpose is a great life, but a life lived without purpose is not truly living at all. If you're not living, either finding your purpose, have found it, and cultivating it and living in it, you're really not living at all because you're just here going through the motions. But trust me, it is so fulfilling, and I'm speaking from experience, to walk in your purpose and to fulfill your purpose and to get up every day saying, I know I'm doing what God placed me here to do. Because a lot of people are mothers and wives, but that's not what God placed us here to do. When he decided that he wanted to blow breath into our bodies and send us to earth, he did that for a reason. He did that so you can complete something in the earth. It's time for you to start to complete what God put you here to complete. Never, ever, ever, ever forget that you have purpose outside of marriage and motherhood. You on your own is enough. Jen, is there anything you would like to add to this?
Don't be afraid to challenge yourself. I literally, sometimes I have like this fear, because I think someone spoke about it on your last video. She has like this fear of success, and I literally like, that's my life sometimes. Like I literally am like afraid to do things to where I'm motivated, but then I'm so afraid that I'm gonna fail that I don't even try, right? So don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Don't be afraid to go through that suffering, because when you go through that suffering, I promise you it's gonna, because once you go through it, you are so present, you're so aware, you're so focused that that pain is gonna turn into purpose, and that suffering and that pain is gonna feel so good whenever you accomplish what it is that you felt like you could never do. Right. So it's kind of like when people go through like basic training or something like that, right? You have some people who are like, I don't think I can go through the training, right? You think you can't do it. Now, more than likely, all of us in some way can get through it. It's just your mind holding you back. Right. So you are your biggest downfall, you know? So you hurt yourself more than anybody else can, because your mind telling you that you can't, but you really can. So you have to say positive things to yourself. You have to uplift yourself. You have to really bring yourself up. Like, say good things to yourself. Don't ever talk bad about yourself, like, you know, and in that, don't be afraid to challenge yourself and suffer, because just know that suffering is going to bring you to a place of peace and purpose, where you're going to feel so much more happy that you did it, instead of knowing that you could have maybe did it and you didn't do it at all. So,
well, I hope you all have enjoyed this episode, but most importantly, I hope you leave this episode with a renewed mind and a renewed energy to put time, put the work in, and to fulfill your purpose, to know that you are enough, to know, my sisters, that you are whole and complete all by yourself. Jen, thank you so much. I couldn't have done this without you. I am so excited that we were finally able to do this after it kind of being talked about and me thinking about it and writing about it. It has finally come to fruition. So thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you.
All the glory goes to God. Amen. I thank him for bringing us together.
Of course. And I almost forgot, because the episode was just that good. Every episode I am challenging us to talk about women that inspire us, to create this virtual web of sisterhood. Someone that, if you're having a rough day, you can go to Instagram, watch a video or whatever they do that inspires you. So I'm gonna let Jen go first with her person, her woman.
A woman that really inspires me, her name is called Melissa Odom. She owns a esthetician. The name of her salon, her shop, her parlor, whatever you want to call it, is Queendom Aesthetics. So she's an esthetician, and she's from New Orleans, and her place is actually like on the east side, or East Bank, however y'all like to say it, in New Orleans. And awesome customer service. Like, as soon as you walk through the door, you are treated like a queen. Like, and her products, like, she makes her own soaps, she makes her own masks, she makes her own toners. Like, she creates all these different products for us queens, also for men, but mostly queens, right? And it is Black owned, and she is so inspiring because she came from New Orleans, and you know, like, she had her first child really young. Like, she got pregnant at 16, and you know, Hurricane Katrina hit, and through all of that, like, she went to Las Vegas, you know, got her degree, came back home, started doing more, and now she has like her own shop, and it's amazing. Like, I just see her just being so great. She really inspires me. We're definitely gonna drop the link to her Instagram.
Yes. Everyone who we talk about, it will be in the description box. Jen's social media for her recruiting, all that will be in the description as well. So I have a few, but I already touched on her, so we're just gonna go with her today. The person that inspires me, a woman that inspires me, is Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts. If y'all don't know her, I feel bad for y'all, because sis gets me through. She gets me through. She's the daughter of Bishop T.D. Jakes. She had a child at a really young age, got married, had a divorce, really didn't think she had purpose, and talked about how she has to find her purpose. And now she co-pastors two churches, one in Los Angeles, one church LA in Los Angeles, and the Potter's House, I think it is, in Denver. She is absolutely amazing. When I found her, it's almost like I found that person that I've been longing for, to give me the inspiration, and who could relate with her being a PK, everything that she's been through. And now she speaks boldly for God, the change that God can make in your life, and how to not let the circumstances that you're going through now affect you. And she does a Woman Evolve podcast weekly, which is amazing. She talks about drinking your water and minding your business. So mind your business ministry.
I love it.
I love it because she talks about her petty ministry that God is still working on with her, and that's definitely me.
Amen.
And she does a Woman Evolve conference once a year. She speaks at various other conferences and churches, and she has a Woman Evolve clothing line. She has clothes, she has mugs, all kind of things. So Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts, I'm so thankful for you, because like I said, sis gets me through. Her sermons feel like she's just been in my life for that past week, and she speaks to it. So I will drop her social media information in the description, like the link to her Instagram, her personal one, as well as her Woman Evolve one, so like you can catch her with conferences and all those kind of things. Trust me, she will change your life. So Jen, we're officially at the end of the episode now. So thank you again for being here so much, and
thank you for having
me.
Of
course, like I told you, you had to be. This was your idea. I just built from off of it. So, everyone who's watching, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, do not forget to subscribe. Your girl trying to get her subscribers up. So make sure you
hit the bell.
Yes, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. And like she said, hit the bell for notifications so you will be notified every time I post a new video. If you're watching on Facebook, the link to my YouTube channel will be there. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. Make sure you tell other women about the Layers of Womanhood series. Coming next week and the next 2 weeks, it's a 2-part series. We're discussing the wife, the mother, the professional, but what about the woman? This is specifically for my ladies out there who have got to the stage in life of being married, of having kids, of building a career, but now you're like, okay, what about the woman, sis? Because she's still a woman who's getting all of this done. So we're gonna dive deeper into that. I'm just gonna be a moderator pretty much for those episodes because I'm not a wife or a mother. I am starting to become a professional, but I have some things and some questions that I want to ask, and I have 3 very special guests who's coming on to give their perspective. All 3 of these women are wives, they're mothers, but they're bosses in their careers. And one of the ladies, she's kind of had a ever-changing career that gives her such a unique perspective that all of us need to hear. So remember, like, share, comment, and subscribe, and be looking for next week's episode. Thank you for watching, and thank you for coming with me as I turn pain into purpose. Bye.